welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. You guys know what we're talking about today. This is going to be my full review of the newest addition to the Pat McGrath Mothership family. This is Mothership 10 Moonlit Seduction. As always, I'm going to be giving you guys a detailed review. We're going to be doing some swatches, some wearable looks. I'm going to be doing comparisons for you guys, and of course sharing you guys all of my completely honest thoughts about what I think of this palette, the formula, if I think it's worth it, and if I recommend it. So if you guys are interested in hearing all of my thoughts, then keep watching. And if you are new here, maybe you found me in like a YouTube search or something like that, then welcome. My name is Sophia, and this is my channel where we talk about all things beauty and luxury. I upload content every single week on all the newest luxury beauty releases. I love Pat McGrath, Natasha Denona, Dior, Tom Ford, etc. I'm also really big on super realistic daylight looks, swatches, reviews, etc., giving you guys kind of like the most realistic reviews possible. So if that sounds up your alley, then you definitely need to join the fam because we have so much fun over here on this channel. Hit that subscribe button to subscribe to my content, and you can also hit the notification bell to hear about every time I upload a new video. Help me out, fam. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. Also, as always, I will link everything that I mentioned in the description box down below. Sometimes my links are affiliate links, so when you shop through them, it's a really great way to support my channel. Thank you so much. And without further ado, let's start talking about this new palette. As you guys know, I'm a huge Pat McGrath fan. I buy most of her products. I have every single one of her motherships, but as always, I'm super realistic with you guys about whether or not I recommend a product. So I have a lot of thoughts about this palette, so I'm really excited to get into this. So like I mentioned, this is Mother Pat's 10th edition of the Mothership palettes. She does have 9 that came before this. If you guys aren't familiar with these palettes, these are her larger, more expensive, sort of fancier, most luxurious palettes that she releases. Typically what you're getting are 10 shades in a mixture of finishes. We usually have metallics, mattes, and then we have her special astral shades, which I will point out for you guys as we go through the swatches. Now, this palette costs $128. I have noticed that Pat McGrath's products, as is with pretty much every other brand in the industry right now, they have gone up a couple of dollars. If I'm not mistaken, these palettes used to cost $125, and now it is $128. I purchased my palette from the Pat McGrath website with my own money as soon as it launched. At the moment of me filming this video, that is the only place that you can purchase this palette, although I am assured this is going to be coming to Sephora. So if you guys want all the updates on that, definitely follow me on my Instagram. I will put my handle up here so you guys can head on over there if you want to follow me. That's kind of where I tell you guys about when these products drop, when they restock, and then of course when they come in stock at other retailers like Sephora. So you can follow me on Instagram if you want all that hard-hitting Pat McGrath luxury beauty news. Anyway, this is what the packaging looks like. This is pretty typical. So it's just like a cardboard box. It opens up like this, and then inside we have the palette. You're getting the very typical weighty lacquered box type of packaging, and inside we have the stunning palette. And this palette, just like all of her Mothership palettes, it's laid out the exact same way. You're basically getting a couple of mattes here. We have this sort of shimmery inner corner, brow bone, like skin show glow type of highlight. We have a couple of high shine metallics, and then we have these 4 super sparkly topper astral shades, which Pat is very much known for, and is also kind of one of the benefit of getting these palettes. In a lot of her other smaller palettes, you are not getting these special glittery topper shades. Now on her website, it says, dance the night away in a decadent, dazzling, and opulent array of hedonistic hues inspired by sensually starlit seductions under the mesmerizing moon. Pat very much likes glamour and opulence and sparkle, etc. We see that come out especially in a lot of her motherships. That's kind of where we're getting like more glamorous, bold, sparkly colors and shades, that kind of stuff. She also really likes space and kind of otherworldly, planetary types of references. So this is called Moonlit Seduction. So I guess this is kind of inspired by the moon and the moonlight, otherworldly sparkle and shine. I don't know, guys. This is what Pat is into. I'm here for it. I'll go with it. I don't know. Comment down below and let me know if you think this color story is moonlit inspired. But regardless, let's get into the swatches so you guys can see what these shades look like on my skin tone. I do have all of the shade names, but I wasn't able to find the shade descriptions, so I'm gonna do my best to describe each of these shades for you guys today. And as I go through each one, I will also tell you what the formula feels like as well. So starting off with the first shade, which is Skin Tense Glow. This is the shade that she always has in the upper left corner of every palette, and it's usually intended to be kind of like an inner corner highlight or a brow bone highlight. I would call this one almost like a shimmering white with just a touch of champagne. It's not pure white, but it's also not a champagne beige. Next up, we have a matte, and this one is called Rosewood Romantique. And I think rosewood is a really great way to describe this shade because it's almost like a dusty rose, but with a little bit of brown added in. It's a little bit warmer tone than the other rose matte that we're gonna see in just a moment. Next up, we have Platinum Dusk. Now, this is a metallic, but is a very high shine, almost glittery metallic. Like this just glides across the hand when you swatch it. I would describe this as a cool tone platinum shade. It almost looks like it's supposed to be one of the astral shades, but I do think that this is a metallic. It has a little bit more kind of slip and glide when it goes across the lid, as opposed to a lot of other metallics, which have a little bit more of like a creamier texture. Next up, we have what is arguably the coolest shade in the palette, and it is called VR Sextasy. This is a duochrome, which she's been including those more and more in a lot of her palettes as of late. And I would describe this as a duochrome between violet and teal. It has kind of like a teal violety shift in my opinion. Next up, we have Astral Gold Lust. We know Mother Pat loves a gold. We cannot have one of these palettes without a gold. And this is another special astral shade. I would call this a true gold. Like this is a true gold. It's a little bit lighter as opposed to kind of like a deeper, richer, maybe more warm tone gold. I think that this is a very good standard gold astral shade. Moving on to the second row, we have Extreme Nocturne. This is also a matte. I've heard a couple of people in other reviews describe this as a brown. I personally don't think that this is a brown. This is more of a gray to me. It's a gray with maybe like a little bit of brown added, but it is, in my opinion, very much a cool tone shade. Next, we have Bronze Devotion. Now, this is another one of the metallics. This has more so that traditional kind of like creamy, rich sort of texture that we typically see from Pat McGrath and her metallics. And I would describe this as a bronze. It's a little bit neutral to cool tone as opposed to maybe the bronzes you would see in some of her other palettes. So yeah, I think this one is a little bit different. It definitely leans a little bit more on the cooler side. Next up, we have another matte. This is called Plum Cabaret. And in comparison to Rosewood Romantique, this one is a little bit deeper and it's a little bit more purple in my opinion. Next up, we have Blitz Venus. This is another astral shade, and I would describe this as a champagne. I think it's pretty neutral in tone. It's definitely more neutral to cool leaning than Astral Gold Lust. So with Astral Gold Lust, you're getting something that is very much overtly gold, but then with this shade, you get something that's a little bit more like on the nudie side, something that's a little bit more subdued. And lastly, we have our last astral shade, and this is called Astral Lilac Aura. Now, I pretty much thought that this was just a white, but then when I saw that the name was Astral Lilac Aura, I do kind of see that it has a little bit of a purple tone to it, but I don't know, guys. I'm gonna be honest with you, on the eye, this looks very much just like a white shimmer. It's very sparkly, it's very blinding. I also think that this one, it's just a little bit like chunkier than the other astral shades, but because of that, it looks super, super dazzling on the eyes. It's just a little bit more glittery than the other astral shades that are in this palette. Lastly, I want to show you guys what all of the matte shades look like swatched next to each other. We have Extreme Nocturne, Rosewood Romantique, and Plum Cabaret. Next, we have all of the metallic shades swatched side by side. We have Skin Tense Glow, Bronze Devotion, and Platinum Dusk. Lastly, we have all of the astral shades. We have VR Sextasy, Astral Gold Lust, Blitz Venus, and Astral Lilac Aura. Okay friends, I hope that those swatches were helpful for you. Now I'm gonna get into some demos. I have both the look that I'm wearing today, and then I also have a more wearable demo for you guys as well. I know with these Mothership palettes, a lot of you guys say you like the fact that they are very creative and you get kind of a lot of finishes, but you also tell me that you wanna see some more wearable looks as well. So in each of these looks, I did something that only took me a couple of minutes. I'm also not wearing fake lashes, anything like that. You can basically create both of these looks in just a couple of steps using a couple of the shades, and I think that you will get a sense of sort of the breadth of looks that you can get from this palette. So without further ado, let's get into the demos. So for this first very neutral look, I popped one of the mattes, Rosewood Romantique, into the crease with a fluffy brush just to add a little bit of definition. I then went in with this creamy metallic shade, which is called Bronze Devotion, all over the lid. This blended out so beautifully. I really loved the shine, even though this is a very basic color. Super beautiful and stunning on the lid. I took the lightest shade, Skin Skin Tense Glow, and I popped that in the inner corner and blended it along the lower lash line just to kind of brighten up the eye. I went back in with the matte Rosewood Romantique on a fluffy brush, and I just kind of blended that out into the outer half of the eye to add a little bit more depth. Finally, I went with the Astral shade Blitz Venus for a stunning nude sparkle. Finally, I popped on some mascara and some liquid eyeliner, and this is the final look. What do you guys think? I thought that this was really stunning, very natural, very beautiful. I think that all of these colors work really well together. This is definitely something that I could wear, you know, on the weekends going out, but also just like to work, something that is not too crazy, not too glamorous, but still very Pat McGrath and very, very beautiful. In look number 2, which is the look that I'm wearing in this review video, I first went in with the matte shade Plum Cabaret and blended that into the crease. Then I took Platinum Dusk and I blended that all over the lid. Wow, like I said before, guys, this shade, it's so smooth, so shiny, so metallic. It's a very, very stunning shade. Once again, we have Skin Tense Glow on the inner corner and on the lower lash line. A really good tip to keep the look wearable is to make the lower lash line brighter and less intense. If you want to wear something more for a day, I recommend using Skin Tense Glow just to kind of brighten up the look. I used Extreme Nocturne to kind of smoke out the outer half of the eye like we did with the other look, except this I think is a little bit more intense. This definitely takes the look in kind of like a smokier, more cool tone direction. Obviously, we had to go in with VR Sextasy in this look, and this is the perfect duochrome to pair with these types of mattes, especially Extreme Nocturne. I thought that this duochrome was pretty easy to work with, especially for me being kind of like a duochrome newbie. I thought this was super stunning. And my friends, this is the final look. This is the look that I'm wearing in the review today. I thought I did a pretty good job keeping this kind of fresh and appropriate for day, but still very glamorous, still very Pat McGrath. I feel like this will be wearable on a lot of different skin tones. So I wanted to just show you guys, you know, some looks that you can create without having to put on the fake lashes, having to do a really big, bold, beautiful going out look. I hope you guys liked these. Okay, friends, so those were the looks that I created. Comment down below and let me know what you think of this look and the other looks that I showed you guys. Do you think that you guys could recreate these? Are these wearable enough? I definitely appreciate your feedback because I'm always reviewing not only Pat McGrath shadows, but also shadows from other luxury brands. So I would love your feedback. I want to make content for you guys and looks for you guys that hopefully you feel like you can recreate at home, so definitely leave me your feedback down below. Now, I know that a lot of you were saying that you were wondering if Moonlit Seduction was going to be a good wearable palette for you, and a lot of you were also asking me for kind of like recommendations between whether or not you should get this or maybe some of the other, I guess you could call them more wearable palettes in the Pat McGrath Mothership collection. So I am going to show you guys just a couple of comparisons against some of the palettes that you might be deciding between if you guys are looking to buy this, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and maybe help you figure out what the major differences are and which palettes you should get. So we're just gonna run through that really, really quick. First, I wanna compare this palette against Mothership 5. So what you guys are gonna see right off the bat is that Mothership 5, it's obviously very bronze leaning. It's much more warm toned. And I think that the biggest difference between these palettes is that with Mothership 5, you're actually getting like more neutral mattes in my opinion. If you're somebody who, when you go in with your mattes, you like to reach for a brown, you like to have more of like a brown toned look, then I think you want to lean more towards Mothership 5. Now, the other thing with Mothership 10 is that these shades are also just a little bit lighter in tone. So if you ever looked at Mothership 5 and you thought, you know, like these colors, they're just a little bit too rich for me, maybe too rich for kind of like every day, then that is the other thing that I think you need to consider. Next up, I want to show you guys a comparison with Divine Rose. The biggest difference here is that with Divine Rose, I think in general, the colors are just a little bit softer. And to be honest with you guys, I still think Divine Rose 1 is the most wearable Mothership palette. Now, if you don't like these sort of neutral to cool tone dusty roses, then obviously this palette isn't going to be for you. But do know, guys, like in Mothership 10, you're still kind of getting these very not very warm tone mattes, and they do kind of lean in like that plummy pinky sort of tone. So I think that if you're going for something that is more like everyday and wearable, I would recommend going for Divine Rose 1. And if you want something that has maybe just like is a little bit different and has a little bit more sparkle and shine, if you're really going for like high shine sparkle, then I think you should go for this, because Mothership 10 is just a little bit more glamorous. Next, we have a comparison with Divine Rose 2. I think that these are even easier to compare because Divine Rose 2 is like the more pigmented, more fun, more colorful version of Divine Rose 1. If you look at Divine Rose 2 and Mothership 10, I really don't think that these are that similar. With Divine Rose 2, you have just like brighter pinks and golds, whereas in Mothership 10, it's definitely more subdued. I think that the shimmers as well, they're more neutral to cool leaning. Whereas with Divine Rose 2, I really like this because it is more warm toned. And lastly, here's a side-by-side with Mothership 10 up against Mothership 9, Huetopian Dream. I just think Huetopian Dream, it's brighter, it's funner, you have more pops of color, whereas I think with Mothership 10, I don't want this to sound wrong, but I think that Mothership 10, it's a little bit more sophisticated in tone. I really like Huetopian Dream if I want something. I really like Huetopian Dream if I want this bright pop of coral, if I want this beautiful violet shade. It's just brighter in nature. It also leans a lot more rosy, if that makes sense. I think that with Mothership 10, you have more cool tone shades, you have more of a mixture in here, and it's just a little bit more of like a subdued, more sophisticated color story. All right, friends, it is time for me to share with you my final thoughts. I'm gonna tell you guys about my experience using this palette. This is not a first impressions, by the way. I have been using this palette nonstop since I got it a couple of days ago. So I think I've probably created about 6 looks with this so far. I've tried every single shade and I have a pretty good idea about how I feel about this palette right now as I'm doing this review. So let's start off with the good. The good thing is I think that the quality here is excellent. I think that it matches up with all of the other motherships that are in my collection. Something that I was really surprised by is that I actually think that these shades have excellent longevity. And the reason I say that I'm surprised is because I think especially with the astral shades, you have to consider the fact that you might have a lot of like glitter fallout. That might happen as you're applying it. It might happen throughout the day. And especially with these shades, VR Sextasy and Astral Lilac Aura, these two are definitely chunkier than the other two that are here. If you guys have experienced Pat McGrath shadows before, you know that like some of the astral shades, they're a little bit chunkier than others, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because once I get it on the eye, wow, it looks amazing. Like you guys saw from the demo when I applied this, it looks absolutely stunning on the eye, but I was surprised because especially when I went in with Astral Lilac Aura, I thought, okay, like this is gonna be all over my cheeks by the end of the day, but it really wasn't, guys. And I was not using any kind of mixing medium. I wasn't using the like glitter pen that Pat McGrath sells. I didn't use any of that because I thought it would be more fair to do the review and do these trials without having to like do any kind of extra work, because I know for you guys it's important to not have to do a lot of work when it comes to luxury beauty. You want something that's a little bit more effortless, and that's kind of why you buy more expensive eyeshadows. And I think that the quality is just fantastic. I had a really nice experience using these shadows and making these looks. Also, what I like about this palette, and maybe this is a con for some of you, I do kind of like how with these astral shades, we finally get something that is pretty neutral, like something that isn't too poppy, because I think with a lot of the other motherships we have some of these astral shades that are in like really bright colors, and I do like that. I like that for what it is, but a lot of times I actually find myself like creating looks with other palettes, brands like Dior or Chanel, and sometimes I just want like a little extra oomph. I just want a little bit of extra shimmer, and I do want a Pat McGrath astral shade that is very neutral, and so I kind of like that we're getting that here. Obviously the VR Sextasy, like that's not neutral at all. It is a duochrome, but I like that we have a mix here of like the 3 neutral shades that I could ever possibly want with any kind of Pat McGrath look or look with any other type of shadow. And then we do get this really cool duochrome, which is great because we know that those are harder to produce. So I kind of feel like I'm getting my money's worth a little bit. Now let's talk about some of the things that I didn't like so much. So I think when this palette first released, I was a little bit disappointed. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'll be perfectly honest. What I wanted to see was either something really unique, something absolutely spectacular, maybe something more colorful, something with a little bit more variety, or what I wanted to see was the perfect Pat McGrath neutral palette, like something that some might call boring, but I might call like my ultimate holy grail palette, because this is Mothership 10, okay? I thought we were gonna be getting like something unbelievable. And if you guys are familiar with the color stories of her other motherships, you guys will also know like a lot of them, they're very glamorous, like they're very intense. A lot of the looks that I create with them, they're more like going out looks. They're not every day like working from home, going to the grocery store, heading to a meeting, that kind of look. That's not really what I use a lot of those palettes for. And a lot of the colors, especially the mattes, they're very dark in tone. And I can just say from my personal experience, being very pale, they're a little bit too dark for me to be using every day. Like I said, I still think that Divine Rose 1 is probably the most wearable one out of all of them. Maybe Huetopian Dream for me, because I'm not afraid of kind of like brighter colors. I either wanted to see something that was an amazing like Pat McGrath fantastical fantasy of a palette, or something where she was taking her amazing formulas and making like the perfect neutral palette. And I'll be honest with you guys, like I don't really understand this color story at all. I think that the shades are nice, but I don't find this color story to be particularly inspiring. I think the biggest beef that I have with it are actually the mattes, because if you cover up the mattes, you could argue we're well on our way to the perfect Pat McGrath neutral palette, at least in my eyes, because you have this beautiful kind of shimmery, almost white. You have a gorgeous brown, works well for pretty much everybody, okay? You've got this really cool, like cool tone platinum shade, so you could take the look more warm tone and gold, or you could go kind of like what I did today, which is more of like a steely platinum cool tone sort of look. And then you've got what I mentioned are kind of like a great array of just basic neutral astral shades that still add like, you know, a really beautiful pop, something unique to a look. But then she goes in with like these weird mattes. Like I don't understand why we couldn't just get like a tan, a chocolate brown, a black. Like this could have been her version of like the Natasha Denona Biba palette, but way better and like fancier and more luxurious for those of us that just like, we just want more sparkle and shine compared to the Biba palette, for example. I don't get how these plummy pinky tones go with the palette. And as more of like a neutral to warm tone lover, I also really don't want this cool tone gray in the palette as well. These two colors, they're just too similar to justify putting them into the same palette. I know that they have different tones, but like why put two rosy plummy shades in the same palette where we could have had this beautiful rose, and then we could have put like more of a warm tone matte so that we could take some of these looks more in like the warm tone direction. Some of them could be in like the neutral direction. We could go in with the gray and we could rock the cool tones, all that good stuff. Like I don't understand why we have both of these plummy pinky shades when you can only include 3 mattes in this palette. The past couple of palettes that she's released have been very pinky, a little bit corally, maybe a little bit purpley in tone. And so I kind of wanted some relief from that. I wanted a little bit of a break from that. And maybe I'm just not that creative, guys, but I don't really like that my only option for starting out my look, if I'm kind of going in with a crease color first, is to go in with like a plum or a dusty rose. I mentioned this with the review of the Bridgerton collections. Like I don't always want a pink crease. Like I don't really get that. I don't know. It's not really how I like to start off my looks. I would have liked some browns in here, or maybe something that was just different than what she gave us before. I will say every single look that I created with this palette, I thought that it was beautiful. I really did like it in the end, but I definitely felt myself wanting to kind of dip into other palettes to maybe pick out some other mattes to wear with these shimmer shades. I almost wish that she kind of just launched these 4 astral shades as a quad, because those quads that she launched a couple of years ago that were all astral shades, those are some of my most used Pat McGrath palettes because I love just kind of reaching for those topper shades. It's just not my favorite color story. All of the looks that I created, I really liked, and as you guys saw, you can create very wearable looks with this palette, but I just don't necessarily think you need it. If you're a Pat McGrath collector, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with this. I think like you probably should get it because it is really beautiful. But if you're somebody where you're like, I'm really trying to choose like which one Pat McGrath palette should I get, you know, I don't really think I would recommend this because I don't think that these mattes are super beginner friendly. And so it kind of begs the question, like, why put out kind of a boring, subdued color story if it's not actually going to be very wearable. I feel like she's launching a lot of these more wearable palettes so that she can kind of meet the general bigger consumer market, kind of like in the middle, like, come to me, come try my brand, like, look at this, it's more wearable. So I don't know, comment down below and you guys tell me what you think. Like, do you think that this is wearable? If you bought this, have you guys been enjoying the color story? Like, what do you think of these mattes? Are you tired of Divine Rose? I would love to hear what you guys think. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with this palette. It's beautiful. I like the looks that I created, but it's not like my perfect Pat McGrath palette, and it's definitely not my favorite. It's not the one that I find most inspiring. Maybe I'll do like a Pat McGrath Mothership ranking video. Comment down below if you guys would be interested in that. I love, you know, giving my 2 cents about each of the palettes. Regardless, I still enjoy Mother Pat, still love the brand, really like the formulas that are in here, and I like the look that I created today. If you guys like this video, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. It definitely helps me out. And if you are new here and you haven't subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and join the fam because we have so much fun over here on my channel. Comment down below and share with me, guys, all of your thoughts. I would love to hear what you think. I hope that you guys are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye.